Greetings and welcome to STEM 351, which is Communication Technologies at Old Dominion University in the spring of 2021. I am Dr. Virginia Jones, and I'm also an ODU grad, and I will be your instructor for this class, this session. So first of all, we want to have the welcome to class and all the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to go over the syllabus and go over the schedule, which is a critical piece of this class. This is probably as important as making sure you have the textbook. You'll see there's a few things that are in Blackboard. There's some APA tips and hints, but the assignments are all in Blackboard, and then the contact information. So let's see if we can get the syllabus to come up first, just to look at it quickly, if it wants to cooperate. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, it came up on my other screen, so hold on just a second. Well, it's doing everything except what I want it to do, of course. Here we go, finally. So you should have seen your copy of the syllabus in Blackboard. It has all the information in here. It tells you what the course learning objectives are, what you should know when you finish this class, and it also has some correlations to industrial technology in the department. The format of this course is that it is totally online or asynchronous. And so you need to watch the videos that I make. You need to read all the provided stuff before you try to do the assignments without reading the background material. So you need to check into Blackboard. I usually open up the assignment at least 2 or 3 days before the week starts, so you can go over the background information, and then you can tackle the assignment. Yes, I know listening to videos can be boring, but if you listen just some, it will definitely help you. So we're going to have what we call an e-learning lesson critique, and this is going to review information that's found in previous chapters. So I think there are 6 of those all together, and they're spread out through the course. So you just do one particular assignment and you get points for each of those. We also have team chapter presentations, which I'll circle back and talk about those a bit more in a minute. But those are very critical to your success in the class. You need to learn to work with a team, and you're going to have to work with them over Blackboard or, through Zoom, communicate somehow to get this presentation done. So there are different teams that do it, and you have to submit all the evaluations to receive points. You can't submit an evaluation on, say, Chapter 7 when we're way up on Chapter 10. It has to be done in a timely manner because the information you provide is shared with the team, not as a way for them to get their final grade, but as a way for the team to understand how different people view the same particular lesson. Because what I may think is the coolest thing I've ever seen somebody do in an e-lesson may not appeal to another learner. And that's the key to developing an online lesson. It's very tough to find that sweet spot in between where everybody seems to accept what is happening. The week that your team presents their chapter, you are exempt from doing an evaluation, so you don't need to do that. Then we're going to have 5 little quizzes, and you get 3 different times to take them. So they're just simple little quizzes based on what information we just went over. And since this class is really, really packed, we have 35 people in here right now, at the end, instead of doing a final project, we're going to have a final exam, which I hope is clear enough, and you can use your book, but I try to put what chapter the question comes from to help you ensure that you can do it. And like I said, this team presentation is extremely important. So if we have 35 people, and I think we have 6 chapters, so you see that's going to be about 6 people on a team. One team will only have 5. So it's really not that much for each individual person to do. The whole key to this is the collaboration, the ability to work with others remotely. But you need to appoint one person as like the point person. They're, we call them the team leader, but they're not really the leader in the way that they're going to tell you what to do. But they're the person who's going to bear that responsibility of making sure everything fits together and y'all all agree this is the way it should look, and then uploading it, because only one person needs to upload their submission when it's your team's turn to do it. But this team coordinator, we'll call them that, also is going to be the person or other people on the team, but usually the coordinator, that's going to let me know such and such person has not answered any emails, has not done any work, will not collaborate, and here it is 2 days before we have to turn it in, so we have to come up with a new plan. At that point, that person who has refused to participate and refused to do anything, because like I said, it's probably at the most 2 or 3 slides that each individual person has to do for 175 points. But if you don't do that, you will get a 0 and the other people will get the grade that they earn. So this is very important. So you have to keep those lines of communication open. People think it's online, you don't ever have to talk to anybody. That's not true. If you have a question, you read an assignment, and after you've read the stuff in the module, and you read the assignment and you go, this absolutely makes no sense to me. Send me an email, call me. But I may not answer because there's too many spam calls out there right now. But leave a voicemail and I will call you back. Send me a text and say, hey, this is Virginia in 351. I have a question about the assignment. Even though we are remote, we still have to have some communication, and that's what's going to help you be successful in this class. You see, this class is based on points. It's a total of 500 points. There's a grade equivalent for you. You should write everything using APA, and that may be a little new for you. We don't have a lot that you have to reference in this class, so you'll probably be okay, but make sure that you use APA. When you submit your assignment, please do not submit it as a PDF, but submit it as a Word document and put your last name, and then whether you put the assignment number or not is not that important as putting your last name, because sometimes if it's a longer assignment, I download them to grade them, and if everybody puts assignment 3, when I go back to attach them to your file, it makes it a little tough. Then, we have all these things about the departmental policies. But I want you to see right here in yellow, because this is a very strict policy, and it's the one for this class, that I do not take your work late. Unless you've been in the hospital and you have a doctor's note, you've been sick, I do not take it late. But here's the key. I'm not going to take it late. I'm not going to have you coming up in April and say, oh, my mercy, I need to turn in all my assignments now. No. But if it's the day before the assignment is due and something happens, it can be as simple as getting a flat tire and you can't get home and you're all stressed out. It can be you feel sick, you think you have a cold. You don't have to have, it says a doctor's note, but you don't really have to have a doctor's note, but you have to let me know. Once I grade the papers and the due date has passed, you will get a 0 if you do not talk to me and let me know what's going on. So there again, I said communication is critical. As long as you let me know something has happened in your life that's going to keep you from being able to turn in the assignment and you need 2 extra days, 3 extra days, that's okay. But just to totally ignore the assignments, not even look at them, and then expect to make them up when March or April rolls around will not happen. The rest of this is kind of normal stuff that it's the policy for the college and everything else. So that is that's the syllabus. So make sure you read it and make sure that you remember email, phone, and anything that you have a question about, we can fix. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the schedule. Now, I tried to make this schedule as easy as I can. Let me get this out of the way. It kind of gets on my nerves. Okay, I tried to make this schedule as easy for you to understand and to keep track of every week. And I put the actual calendar week. I start the weeks on Sunday and end them on Saturday night. And yes, every assignment except for the final exam in this class, let me back that up. Every assignment except for the team assignments and the final are due on Saturday night. Yeah, I know other teachers may have them due on Sunday. Some may have them due on Monday. I have them due on Saturday so that on Sunday afternoon I can start grading them and try to get them back to you in a timely manner. So sending me an email and saying, oh, I didn't realize it was due on Saturday because all the other teachers are due on a Sunday night. That doesn't cut it. Look right here. The week runs Sunday through Saturday, and it tells you if it's yellow highlight, it's an e-learning assignment. Remember, we have 6 of those. If it's teal, it's a quiz. If it's purple, it's your team assignment. And this goes every week and tells you. So right here, your very first week, all you have to do is look at this video and the notes in Blackboard. Read chapter 1 in the book. This is it. That's what it's going to tell you in the video. So this is all you do. Then we get to chapter 2, and you see you got e-learning assignment number 1 is due by midnight on January the 30th, which is a Saturday night. I just looked at the calendar to make sure. Then there's also this little quiz. Remember, you get 3 attempts. So it goes like that all the way down. You got another assignment, another quiz, another assignment. When we get down to chapter 5 is when the teams start presenting. So whoever's chapter 5 team, their first one is going to be due that Sunday. So that beginning of the week, the 14th, by 6 o'clock, so that I can upload it and other students have the week to watch it, look at it, and write their critique. So that's the way it is for all of these chapters. So we have chapters 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. And then it's back to having to listen to me for the last couple of chapters. And you see all the stuff that's due. And then we got the final exam. I will open up the final exam probably sometime after this week. So probably sometime after the 24th. I think I skipped a day in there because this is 24 and this is 26. So I must have lost a day somewhere. So I usually open it up earlier. And you get 2 attempts to complete it. And I also go into the exam because there are some fill in the blank in the exam. I also go into the exam and review every one that's posted because maybe the fill in the blank said Mary had a little lamb and you didn't know how to spell lamb, so you spelled it L-A-M. Blackboard would count that wrong. I would count that right because I know what you mean. You know, that kind of stuff. So I try to give you the benefit of the doubt as much as I can. And then class is officially over May the 6th. Exams in, and that's the end of class. So let's go back to the next stuff. So again, talking about the teams, I said, you know, that you have to collaborate. I have not developed the teams yet, and there's a reason for that. Tuesday is the first official day of classes, and as often happens, there's 1 or 2 people who drop the class because they've decided that, you know, this is not something they want to do right at this time, or 1 or 2 people have to be added late because they realize that, oh my, I need this to graduate in May. So those are the things that you need to know. The add drop deadline is January the 26th. So that is the last day that you can drop the course or add the course without a grade or a financial penalty. If you just quit participating in the class, then you will get a failing grade if you do not drop the class yourself. The way that they consider participation, especially in an online class, is if you log into Blackboard, they consider that you have participated. So that's how I determine what was the last day that you were in the class. So let me go over this one more time, because every semester it seems to be a problem. Just remember, follow the schedule. And if you see I typed a date wrong, like I just noticed I went from the 24th to 26th, so I left out a day somewhere in there. If you see something that looks weird, you see something that looks wrong, just email me or text me or call me. It will not hurt my feelings. We all make mistakes. So if I type something wrong, let me know. And remember, it's important to keep the lines of communication open. Just put it in your mind that almost without fail, every Saturday, you have a really short assignment that is due. There's one or two where you have to use different technologies, like I'm using Screencast right now, and that's your very first assignment to use that. That may take you a little longer time to get used to the technology, but it's a valuable learning time. But most of the written assignments that you have to turn in are very short and very easy. Let me give you an example. There's one assignment where it says create a storyboard for a PowerPoint presentation. And so here's what happens. People don't listen to the module. They don't read the stuff that's accompanying the assignment where you can go and see what a storyboard is. And their brain focuses on make a PowerPoint, so they turn in a PowerPoint on how to wash a dog. That is not what the assignment is asking for. The assignment says create the storyboard, which is a graphical representation of what you would put in PowerPoint when you're going to make that presentation. So I can't say it enough times, and I'll keep saying it every time, because I do want you to be successful, and I don't like giving people zeros, but you've got to turn it in on time. You've got to ask questions if you don't know. But other than that, I think you'll really learn a lot. Unfortunately, probably some of the PowerPoints that I even do for the class or the presentations violate some of the good e-learning principles, but we all know that sometimes you just have to put all the information out there. So I welcome you to class. I'm glad to have you here, and just reach out to me for any question you have, anything you need, and I will be glad to answer as quickly as possible. And good luck. And now we're going to jump into Chapter 1. So what is e-learning? Our text defines this as instruction that's delivered on a digital device that is intended to support learning. So if you look on page 8 of the text, you'll see that they list a lot of different things that e-learning should do and things that we will examine. E-learning can be synchronous, asynchronous, it can be a blended class, it can use the internet, it can be professional training you receive on the job, which might use the intranet or be cloud-based. E-learning, especially today, uses a lot of media elements. It can also use learner collaboration, where a synchronous class might have breakout rooms, or asynchronous may use online quizzes or discussion boards. But basically, e-learning is to help develop a skill for individual learning or organizational performance goals. So as you can see from the definition that we talked about, there are 3 major elements that should be included in e-learning: the what, the how, and the why. E-learning should include content, obviously, the information presented with a technique or an instructional method to help the learners learn the content. How e-learning is presented is by different digital devices in any format. It's the E of the e-learning. And the why,
Why do we do e-learning? Because we want to help learners achieve personal learning objectives. So is e-learning better than traditional learning? This is something that has been discussed for many years since e-learning began. Computer-based training started back in the 60s and was used quite frequently. Currently, it is probably 55 or more percent of learning that takes place. The Army was one of the biggest users of a type of e-learning where they had film and film strip presentations for the soldiers. And they did a research study and they decided that using this modality provided better learning results than having actual classroom instruction. But research from different years, 94, 98, 2001, 2004, and on, shows what they call achievement effect sizes, which is something we'll talk about later in this course. But this research basically compared electronic distance education, which is what they used to call e-learning, to traditional classroom education. So you see, when you look at effect size, the thing that you see is that most of the results cluster right here, so that the effect size right here from 0, there's not much deviation, less than 1/4 of a percentage point. So the thing that we want to remember about e-learning is when the instructional method remains essentially the same, so does the learning, no matter which medium you use. So no matter whether you do it with e-learning or face-to-face, as long as the instruction is essentially the same, students will learn. So what are some of the promises of e-learning? E-learning offers customized training and instruction. If you think about it, we mean that this is where you can tailor the content and the methods and the way that you navigate through the program based on the need of individual learners. Think about programs where you learn how to use a new software program, or where you learn to do something. Maybe you've seen a YouTube video. That would be a most current type of informal e-learning, where you want to learn how to replace maybe the spigot in your bathroom sink, and you can find a YouTube video to help you learn that. Another promise of e-learning is the engagement, because we know all learning requires engagement, but in e-learning we have two types of engagement that happen. We have behavioral engagement, which means it's an overt action that a learner takes during instruction. So some of this is, you pressing the forward arrow, typing an answer, clicking in an option, or doing different things that require interaction on the part of the learner. Psychological engagement means the cognitive processing of the content in a way that helps the learner acquire new skills and new knowledge. Another promise of e-learning is multimedia, and we are all aware that multimedia has really changed the face of e-learning. We have text, we have audio, you can incorporate videos, we have Prezi, we have so many different ways to bring about e-learning using different multimedia tactics. So it's really been a big bonus to e-learning to have the use of multimedia. Acceleration of expertise is something that we don't always think about, but historically, for you to become an expert in an area, it usually took you about 10 years to become an expert at a certain skill or craft. And in some workplaces, you may not always get the opportunity to fine-tune those skills and develop the skills that you need, because you don't always have the opportunity to do this. So having simulations and opportunities where you can do the work in a simulated environment has helped people gain more expertise. And then the last is digital games. And we know that digital games came on the scene of e-learning with a little bit of controversy attached to them, because a lot of professors and public educators thought that we didn't want to turn education into a game for students. We weren't there to provide entertainment. But new research has shown that gaming actually helps learners engage, and it helps them think more critically and develop skills. You know, some of the characteristics of games is that they have rules in a simulated system. They respond to the player when the player makes a move. It is challenging. It is cumulative, so you know you achieve different levels or you reach certain areas towards your goal. And above all, it's very inviting because it offers appeal and interest to the user. So these are all things that we like about e-learning. Now, pitfalls of e-learning, too much of a good thing. You know, sometimes we have a tendency to want to overdo this, so we don't want to have every flash and every bang and every picture and every animation you can. If you can think back when people used to use PowerPoint and they would have every animation possible on the presentation, and people would sit there and go, really, I cannot stand this. So that's too much of a good thing. And we want to be conscious of that. You've got to find that sweet spot where it's just enough to engage, but not too much to distract from the learning process. So the second one ties into this, not enough of a good thing. You know, you don't want to have just a wall of words, not just text. You have to have things that engage the learner in different ways. Another problem with e-learning is losing sight of the goal. You know, we always have to make sure when we are developing a training that the key skills that we are trying to present are going to promote organizational goals and build the training around the tasks that make those skills. Sometimes as technologists, we get caught up with the technology and want to do learning based on whatever's the latest craze in technology. So we have to be very careful and make sure that we use the technology that will best leverage the learning of the people we are presenting it to. And the last pitfall is discovery learning, because we all know how easy it is to discover and learn things on the internet. In fact, Google is now a verb, because if you need any information, you don't look it up the way you used to. You just go Google it and find out information. So one lesson we've learned from this is that pure discovery learning rarely works. We still have to have some structure that's going to provide appropriate guidance for our learners. So we have two major guidelines that apply to e-learning, and we have to decide what type of e-learning we are seeking to provide our learners. One is to inform. We're just presenting information. We're just saying this is, you know, something about the history, a historical thing, a new product, features of a new product. Or is this something that's going to have performed, something that they need to have procedural skills to understand? If you look on page 19, you'll see table 1.1 gives you a nice little chart of this. So when we talk about two types of performance goals, they fall into two different categories, and we call them near and far transfer. Which sounds a little different at first, but when you think about it, it makes sense. You have what's called a procedural performance goal, and that promotes near transfer. What that is something like if you're learning a new software product, because there's usually one correct way to perform that skill, So it's pretty lockstep in what you learn. You learn that this is the way you do it always. Strategic is considered the type of promotes the transfer of FAR transfer, because this is more general, it's more strategic, it's multiple ways to achieve a particular outcome. And examples of this would be when people have to use their own judgment, so they're learning soft skills, supervision, or management skills in a type of training. We also have e-learning architecture that we need to be aware of. And although all e-learning is delivered on a particular digital device, different courses reflect different assumptions of learning, which we introduce here and describe. So we have different types of architecture based on learning assumptions. So we have receptive, where you're acquiring information; directive, where you're trying to strengthen your responses and your skills; or guided discovery, which we talked about a little bit as a promise of e-learning, where you construct knowledge in a guided way. Now, these architectures also deal with the levels of interaction learners have with the learning, and there is a table 1-2 on page 21 that you can look at. But receptive has low behavioral engagement, directive has medium, and guided discovery has high. So what does this mean? When you have receptive architecture, it means you have very low engagement. So this goes back to your types of training where you're just presenting a new product, or you're just giving a history of something. You're just giving them information with few opportunities for them to respond. Directive uses the classic training example we all understand, where they give you an explanation, give you an example, question, and then feedback. Guided discovery often is in the simulations, but it's where learners perform the task while they're still receiving guidance from the program. And this encourages both behavioral and psychological engagement. So what is effective courseware? This is the intent of our learning and discovery in this course. So we want to talk about what's really going to make our training modules that we develop effective for our learners. So we have three overarching constructs for effective courseware. One is our training goals. We need to make sure that our goals or our intended outcomes, they will influence what kind of courseware you want to use, and that you have to make sure that the guidelines that you use to develop your goals are appropriate for what you want the learners to learn. You have to make sure that you are conscious of the visuals, the narration, and the text that you use to present the information, because you want to help your learners achieve skills. You also need to be aware of learner differences. Lessons should include instructional methods appropriate to learner characteristics. Something that is very important to understand is learners' prior knowledge of course content, because that exerts the most influence on how much people will actually learn from the training. Learners with little knowledge will benefit from different instructional strategies than learners who are relatively experienced. For this course, we're mostly going to talk about guidelines that we use for adult learners who are new to this type of course content. And the last factor that we want to talk about is the context. And that includes such issues as technical constraints of the delivery platform that you're using, the network, the authoring software, the policies related to the learning management systems that your learners might be using, cultural factors in the institutions, such as the acceptance of and routine familiarity with technology, and then different restraints such as those related to budget, time, and management expectations. There are a lot of things that you have to consider, and sometimes you have to let those be your basic guidelines when you're developing your learning.